On the morning of December 8, 1941, the United States woke up to a new reality. The peaceful isolation that had defined American life for decades was shattered overnight. The attacks on Pearl Harbor, less than 24 hours old, left the nation shocked, grieving, and furious. Now, the question was no longer whether America would join the war, but how soon and how decisively. Across the country, radios crackled with updates. Newspapers rushed out emergency editions. People gathered around living room radios, in cafes, on sidewalks, anywhere they could hear President Franklin D. Roosevelt address the nation. Many Americans had lost friends, brothers, husbands, and sons at Pearl Harbor. Others feared more attacks could follow. The tension was unlike anything the country had felt since World War I. At 12:30 p.m., Roosevelt walked into the Capitol to deliver one of the most famous speeches in American history. His face was tired, his expression firm. The world listened as he described the events of the previous morning. His voice echoed through Congress. December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. These words captured the nation's heartbreak and fury. Roosevelt detailed the treachery of Japan's attack, explaining how Japanese diplomats had still been negotiating in Washington as their aircraft raced toward Pearl Harbor. There had been no warning, no declaration of war, only devastation. When Roosevelt finished speaking, the chamber erupted. Senators, representatives, and observers rose to their feet in thunderous applause. A vote was held almost immediately. Only one member of Congress voted against war, Representative Jeannette Rankin, a lifelong pacifist. Everyone else voted yes. By mid-afternoon, December 8, 1941, the United States had officially declared war on Japan. America was now part of World War II. Across the country, the response was overwhelming. Recruiting stations filled within hours. Young men stood in long lines, some still wearing work clothes, others arriving with suitcases in hand. Many didn't wait for the draft. They volunteered. Factories sounded whistle blasts as workers returned early, ready to shift into wartime production. Families donated scrap metal, rubber, anything that could help the military. It wasn't just soldiers preparing for war. The entire nation mobilized. For decades, America had tried to stay out of global conflicts. The wounds of World War I were still remembered. Many believed oceans were enough to protect the homeland. But Pearl Harbor forced a new understanding. The world had changed, and America could no longer remain isolated. Military leaders moved quickly. War plans that had been theoretical the day before now became urgent blueprints. Naval commanders assessed the Pacific Fleet's losses. Army officers reviewed defense positions along the West Coast. Air patrols scanned the skies for signs of further attacks. Rumors spread about Japanese submarines near California or Hawaii. Blackout drills began in major cities. Meanwhile, Roosevelt met with military advisors late into the night. They discussed how to respond, how soon, and where America's first strikes should be aimed. The president understood that this was not a conflict against Japan alone. The Axis powers, Japan, Germany, and Italy, were bound by treaty. War in one theater risked war in another. That fear became reality within days. On December 11th, Germany and Italy declared war on the United States. Hitler, confident after victories in Europe, believed America would be overwhelmed by a two-front struggle. He underestimated the country's industrial potential and its determination. Back on December 8th, however, most Americans focused on Japan. Photos of burning battleships filled newspapers. Stories of heroism and tragedy circulated. Sailors who saved crewmates, nurses who worked through chaos, pilots who launched under fire. These tales fueled a powerful national resolve. In Honolulu, smoke still rose from the wreckage. Divers searched sunken ships for survivors. Families waited for news. Hospitals overflowed with wounded sailors. Military officers organized defenses for a possible second attack. Pearl Harbor was no longer a peacetime base, it had become a symbol of sacrifice and determination. Back in Washington, Roosevelt signed the war resolution with a black fountain pen. He handed it to an aide and said quietly, "We are all in this now. Every single one of us." The nation understood. Women prepared to enter factories and volunteer as nurses. Children collected scrap for recycling drives. Scientists began urgent research on radar, medicine, and new technologies. Hollywood studios produced films that rallied the nation's spirit. Churches filled with people praying for loved ones overseas. The attack had awakened something deep within America, a sense of unity and purpose rarely seen before or since. December 8 wasn't just the day the United States declared war, it was the day the entire country transformed. Isolation ended, a sleeping giant awakened. Factories became arsenals. Citizens became soldiers. Families became pillars of strength. The nation that had once hesitated to join a global conflict now marched forward with unshakable resolve. Within 4 years, the United States would become the central force in defeating the Axis powers. But that future began on a single day, December 8, 1941, when the shock of Pearl Harbor hardened into determination and America stepped decisively into World War II. That day changed not only U.S. history, but the future of the entire world.